communication can be the breaker of many things. To get the best product, like you definitely need to understand like what the true vision was.
Musicians and composers both find ways to sort of level up their craft when they discuss techniques and just ways of approaching music with other musicians and composers.
It connects you with the fantasy, it connects you with the characters, and it connects you with the story. And that's an important aspect of what we hope to achieve with Music for League. That was awesome. Awesome. Well, welcome Tribeca Games. My name's Curtis Churn, and I'm a sound designer for League of Legends. And I'm really excited to introduce you to this group of people. It's a group of people that consist of very talented artists, composers, and musicians. And today they give you some insight into sort of their methods and practices of working together on some of these projects that you're going to see today. We're going to start by unpacking what it's like to compose for a League of Legends champion. We're going to start with visuals and gameplay and how it can impact a piece of music. And then we're going to talk about story and how the story can drive a composition. And then finally, we're going to talk about alternate fantasies of our champions and how that can inspire new pieces of music and even sometimes push the boundaries of how we approach composing music for inside of the actual game. But there's a common goal that runs through all of these. And the common goal is to deepen the player's connection to the fantasy. So to dive in, I want to actually introduce you to all of these people up here because without them, it would be impossible. Mark Robertson. He's a violinist, session player in Hollywood. Recent projects include Jurassic World, Fast and Furious 7, House of Cards, and he also played on the Curse of the Sad Mummy that you'll hear later today. We have Serena McKinney on violin as well. She's a session musician in Hollywood, and she's a concert master for the upcoming film Creed and other recent projects, including Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Star Wars 7. Then we have Andrew Duckles on viola. Session musician in Hollywood, also played on Star Wars 7. We have Cameron Stone on cello. Session player in Hollywood, played on Game of Thrones. There it is. Yeah. What a performer. Okay, we have Person of Interest, Revenge, and many others. He's also featured on the original recordings for the Amumu track. We have Amy Tatum on the flute, session musician in Hollywood, has performed for Revenge and is featured on the original recording of the Tide Caller piece that you just heard. We have Randy Kerber on keyboard, composer and performer notable on Harry Potter, Star Wars, Jurassic Park, and hundreds of other films. And he's featured on the original recording of Tide Caller as well, the piece that you just heard. So, yeah. So by a quick show of hands, who's familiar with this theme?
Oh, wait, I have another one.
Nice. Well, just that small musical phrase, many of you already know the movie. Some of you, it paints a specific image or scene in your head, or maybe it takes you to the particular location that you first watched the film. But there's a key to that, and that it connects you with the fantasy, it connects you with the characters, and it connects you with the story. And that's an important aspect of what we hope to achieve with Music for League. So the opening piece that you heard our musicians play was called Tide Caller. It was composed for a champion named Nami. She commands the powers of the tides to heal and restore her allies. And our music team wanted to sort of capture the essence of what it's like to be a tide caller. So that being said, we have a question for Randy here. Can you tell us a bit about how the tide calling and aquatic thematic visuals inspired some of the musical ideas of the piece and the piano wanderings?
Yeah, I mean, it's said in the music, it said basically wandering. I mean, and it had chord symbols and a lot of slashes in it, which told me to come up with something. And the musical aspect of it was I was thinking of the way water is and the way it trickles and the way it flows and everything like that. So that was kind of the inspiration for that. But there's an interesting story that goes along with that water theme. We were playing a performance of Nami's theme at the new Riot campus for the grand opening. And, it never rains in Southern California. Well, we were on stage and it started to drizzle. And it was right around the time when I had these little drippy water things. So I kind of used that as inspiration at the time. And it was like a good omen from the universe for and the christening of the new Riot campus, so I had this little conversation going with the rain.
Well, how do you know when you're finished with a theme? How do you know that you feel like you've landed on something that you're going to move forward with?
Do you know you're finished? Really? It's something that just resonates. I mean, inside of me, there's like almost a bell that kind of, an internal bell that goes off. I mean, I don't know how to describe it because there's a magic around the music and there's a magic around composing and a magic around improvisation. There's a feeling of doneness that I don't know how to describe. It isn't a definite thing, but it is a definite feeling. I will put it that way, on a soul level.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Randy.
Yeah.
So Nami's visual and gameplay inspired the music, but a character's story can go a long way to shape a composition. So we're going to move on to Kindred. And Kindred is a recently released champion for League of Legends. It's sort of our take on the Grim Reaper, almost. Here's a little teaser that'll help paint the tone for the champion.
Ram, tell me a story.
There was once a pale man with dark hair who was very lonely.
Why was it lonely?
All things must meet this man, so they shunned him.
Did he chase them all?
He took an axe and split himself in two.
So he would always have a friend.
So he would always have a friend.
Duality is central to Kindred's thematic core. Our music team was involved in the very beginning of the character creation for Kindred. And we think this is a really good thing because it allows the composers to sort of get in tune with the nuances of the champion, being the differences between Lamb and Wolf. Lamb is a very graceful and merciful being, and Wolf is a very sort of merciless and aggressive being. So here to perform the Kindred's theme is Randy Kerber on piano and Cameron Lloyd Stone on cello. Once again, fantastic. So I want to introduce Edward Brennison, the composer of that piece. Yeah. And we have some questions for Ed here. Kindred is perhaps somewhat an unusual piece of music when it comes to what typically falls under game music. Was your choice of the style a conscious one?
What you guys heard is probably the very first thing I came up with when I sat down to start working on Kindred. I did have a few other ideas, but I kept circling back to the very first iteration. So in that sense, it was not a conscious choice. The choice that was conscious, that was trying to bring Kindred a profoundly unique musical identity. We have something north of 120 champions by now, and our goal in the music team, one of our goals, is to make sure that each champion has a very fitting musical quality.
Awesome. So why did you choose the cello and the piano?
What's interesting is that the first concept I had for the music involved having an orchestra play very contrasting sections to portray the lamb and the wolf, and that would be using subgroups of the symphony orchestra. And upon further examining the gameplay and the lore of Kindred, I realized that maybe the music would benefit from a more nimble approach. And one thing I really like about chamber music is the ability to have a lot of symbiosis in the writing. And, in the case of Kindred, the wolf and the lamb are never really without each other. And I thought the lamb would be really good at portraying the agility and nimbleness of the piano, of the lamb, and the cello would have amazing bite, so to speak, to play the wolf.
Awesome. So I guess the million-dollar question, do you consider this classical music?
Well, I have a $1 million answer for you. Not really. At least it was never something I thought of when I was writing. It is true that when I was reading the lore of Kindred, I got this sort of Grimm Brothers aura to that story. And maybe that's why some 19th century harmony weaved itself into the piece. But it was never really meant to be anything but the music for Kindred.
Awesome. Thanks, Ed.
Thank you, guys. Yeah. Thanks for your beautiful playing. Thank you.
So we've given examples of crafting music for sort of visual and thematic inspirations. But what about the challenge of creating music for champions that already exist in our game, but maybe didn't have their own music? And that brings us to Amumu. So one of the challenges with Amumu was the fact that when the music team decided to work on a piece for Amumu, our players had already developed a connection with this champion. They already knew a little bit about who he was, and they already knew a little bit about his background, but we didn't actually have a way to expand on the origin story of Amumu, or maybe even what his curse was actually about. So with this project, the music team set out to tackle the curse of the sad mummy. So through a music video for this piece, you're able to follow Amumu on a journey, sort of about how he finds out about who he is. And through this journey, you find out that he's cursed with loneliness. And it's a little dark, but it really opens up who Amumu is and allows you to connect to him, connect to his story, and connect to him on an emotional level. So before we get into how our music team actually composed for this piece, let's watch the animated music video accompanied with our musicians, many of who were actually already on the original recording. And Christian Link actually sang the lyrics to this piece, but today we have TJ Brown. TJ, come on up. Yeah. What's up, man? So he's a League of Legends player, and he's a community creator. And he actually felt really compelled to make an awesome cover version of this song. So I'll let you guys take it away.
child in Valorant has heard the tale before about the cursed mummy boy who felt his heart no more. So sad and lorn, that helpless lad, Amumu was his name. He ventured out to find a friend and learn about his bane. Amumu traveled through the land, determined to make friends if only they could understand that even when Amumu stood upon the ledge of home, his hope would disappoint him and he would remain alone. But then the curse began to whisper in his ear and would confirm what was Amumu's biggest fear. It pledged that never shall someone become his friend. It pledged that he shall be alone until his end. The sorrow and despair became too much to bear. Was for him, for them, the evil curse had won. The anger and the anguish overwhelmed his fragile soul and caused a wicked tantrum that he never could control.
So we'll have Alex Temple hop up on stage as well as TJ. Alex is on behalf of the music team going to speak about the Amumu piece. And we have some questions for both of them. So, Alex, how did the story of Amumu drive the decisions that you made while composing the piece for the music team?
I would say that the story was a huge factor in a lot of the decisions. I mean, the story as presented in the video, it's fairly straightforward. Amumu goes out into the world, he tries to find a friend, he can't find one, and ultimately the curse overtakes him. So we wanted to try to capture sort of the loneliness of his journey by just having a very small ensemble of instruments as opposed to like a large orchestra or anything like that. And by just the specific choice of the notes themselves, it's very melancholy melodies, very melancholy, bleak chord progressions. And speaking of chord progressions, pretty much the whole piece is built upon this chord progression that's played in the piano that it keeps repeating over and over again under the various verses and instrumental parts. But the extra instruments build while it's repeating. until we get to this big explosive climax. And one thing that I think is interesting is after the climax, it's sort of like the story's not quite over. I know the video says the end, but because the music ends in kind of like an unresolved suspended chord in a way, I think the music kind of tells like a to be continued, which I like to think of as it is continued when you play Amumu, because Amumu, as you play him in game, he has basically already gone through the experiences that you see in the video.
So what came first? Was it the music or the video, and how did one impact the other?
They kind of came about at the same time. So once the decision was made that we were going to go ahead and make this video, Christian Link, who was actually the primary composer on this, he sat down at the keyboard and started sort of noodling around trying to find what was going to be the core sort of piano melody for it. And after a couple weeks, he found it. And at that point in the production timeline, it was time to start also figuring out like the points that the video was going to be edited to. So Christian had to basically create a framework using just this piano part and basically establish before the rest of the music was written how long it was going to be, what the key moments are going to be, where the big climax was. So then once he created that, we were basically locked into it. He basically told the video team, okay, these are where these points are going to be. So then they kind of had two pipelines where the video was developed while Christian filled in the blanks, wrote the lyrics, wrote the vocal and instrumental melodies. And so it's kind of difficult to compose that way in some ways, but I think it works out pretty well for us when we have to have those like two separate pipelines that arrive at the same point.
Thanks, Alex. All right, TJ, what about Amumu's story or the song inspired you to do a cover?
For me, it was just a beautiful song, like the story and how it just ties into it. Like, I didn't think that a game could come out with music that great. Like, I had never seen it before. And I just really liked what League of Legends was doing with music, and I just decided that once I saw it, I had to do it.
Yeah. So how did you get involved with Riot?
So it's kind of a funny story. Like I said, I was seeing the stuff that Riot was doing with music. I saw the Amumu song, I saw the Imagine Dragons stuff, I saw the DJ Sona stuff, and I was just like, I want to be part of this somehow. And so me and my buddies, Albert Chang and AJ Raphael, they're both YouTubers, we did a cover of the song on YouTube. And my hope was that since Riot's so active with their community, that they would reach out somehow, and they did. And so I shared it with Christian Link, who's the writer of the song, and he retweeted it and showed it to a bunch of Riot people. I got some messages and stuff. Now I'm working on this with you guys, and it's amazing.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks, TJ. Thank you. Yeah. So Amumu wasn't a new champion. And while there wasn't any particular reason for the music team to pursue creating a musical experience for Amumu, they did it because they were passionate about Amumu's story. And so this next project that we're going to talk about also began as a small passion project. But then it eventually escalated into a full album release by a metal band named Pentakill. So we've been discussing music projects for new champions, as well as champions that have already existed. But Pentakill was an exploration of music for a set of skins. And to explain skins fairly quickly in our game is they're sort of alternate fantasies of our champions. Think of Amumu, but a robot, powered or infused by some sort of scientific power. All the gameplay is the same. He has the same moves, but he's sort of infused with this scientific power. So while the champion still plays the same, he looks thematically different, almost as from like an alternate universe. So in our game, we have we're coming up to 130 champions, and 5 of these champions have a skin, and it portrays them as a member of a metal band. And when you put all 5 of them together, they create the band Pentakill. So a few guys from our music team wanted to create 2 or 3 songs as the band Pentakill. And that small passion project grew to an 8-song album, a written story about the band, a website, and a fun fact that it actually charted on iTunes after it was released. And so I want to bring up Scott Kirkland from the Crystal Method and Jason Wiley. Jason's one of our composers, as well as a fantastic guitar player. And he played a lot of the shredding guitar solos on the Pentakill album. So we have him here to play a quick snippet of 2 songs. Let's see, it's The Last Whisper and Deathfire Grasp. And we couldn't fit a whole metal band on stage. So we have Scott as his backup. I'll let you guys get to it. That's fast. That's fast, Jason. All right. Well, we have some questions for you. So, Jason, why this? Why metal? And how did it come about?
I think, simply put, we had this badass band in game, right? But they didn't really have any music. So, how cool of a band can you be if you don't have any music? So. And then on top of that, I think a lot of the community was really expecting something and hoping something, because these skins are so cool and crazy and dark and evil and stuff. So it's a really good chance to make some music for it. So a couple of us composers on the music team actually come from more of a rock and metal background. And since we know the champions so well, it felt pretty natural for us to just go with it and make a metal album for it, you know?
So how did you approach the project? Like, did you go into each song knowing exactly what you were trying to do, or how did it work with you and Link in the studio?
All right, it sounds pretty cheesy and cliche, but it was really natural. We just kind of, a couple of us got together in a room and literally just, since we knew the champions and we were already attached to them, we really just jammed out in a room. You know, sometimes I would come in like, you know, do a little, yeah. I had to do that. But seriously, sometimes I'd try and get them going, but for the most part, we really just sat down and jammed out. And I wasn't aware that Christian was just recording a lot of the riffs that we were playing and jamming out. And then I was like, okay, guys, let's all right, we got some cool stuff. Let's get ready to make a song. And he already had all this stuff recorded. So then we just kind of sat down and this would be cool for here. And we had like 2 songs in the first day. And I think that was Lightbringer and Deathfire. And that kind of set the tone for the album. So
thanks, guys. Scott Kirkland from Crystal Method and Jason Wiley. So there's a lot of effort into creating music for music that's going to be experienced outside of the game environment. And writing music for a stylized music video is actually much different than writing music for the actual game. However, when you think of game music, you might think of music that plays during gameplay, which brings us to our next project involving a champion named Sona. and a skin that will transform her into a DJ. So Sona's entire character revolves around sound and music. I mean, even her abilities are named musical references like crescendo or power chord. So one day the Skins team approached the composers and they were like, we have an idea. We want to change Sona into a DJ. And the first thing that everybody gravitated towards was, let's take her theme and give it to some awesome electronic artists and have them remix it. But it wasn't that simple because Sona was one of our older champions and she didn't have any music. Almost like the same situation of Amumu. So, one of our composers, Alex Temple, took it upon himself to create a demo of Sona's theme that would then be used to give to some of these electronic artists to be reinterpreted. The musicians will play that demo for you now. All right, bring Alex back up on the stage again. So we have Alex, the composer of that piece, and yeah. So we have some questions for you again. Did you approach this differently knowing that it was going to be remixed into electronic music?
I would say yes. If I had been tasked with just sort of like writing the piece for Sona that would either go out with like a new splash or possibly a champion relaunch, I think I would have approached it a little bit more literally, almost like what would it sound like if Sona herself was giving a concert. And I probably would have made it like much more flowy based on what you would expect her instrument, the étoile, how you would expect it to be played. Knowing that it was going to be remixed, I wanted to sort of keep some of that flowiness, but sort of tie it down to a more rhythmic grid that would be easier for other artists to work with. And I wanted to make sure that things like melodies that had clear beginnings and endings and modular sections that they could manipulate and change the order of, that those are present in a way that they could work with.
So was there anything surprising that actually happened with the elements or parts that the artist gravitated towards?
There was. So I composed the song in kind of like an A-B-A format where I thought of the A as being the main theme, the B as being kind of a secondary theme, and then the A just repeating the main theme again. And when we sent it out to all the artists who were working on it and started to get the demos back, we realized that pretty much all of them saw the B theme as being the main theme of the piece. And that didn't bother me. It was just like, it was kind of interesting that a piece that I had thought about in a very specific way in terms of where the important parts were, pretty much everyone else agreed that I was wrong. So, so it was interesting just like hearing that other people interpret your music very differently than you do sometimes.
Well, thanks, Alex. So I'd like to welcome Jason Wiley back on stage, as well as Toa Dunn, who's a development manager of the music team. They were a part of the core team that would take the orchestral piece that Alex wrote and sort of use it to bring DJ Sona to life. And they're going to tell you a little bit more about that adventure.
Yes, awesome. Well, thanks, Curtis. Quick show of hands, actually. How many Sona players do we have? Anybody play Sona? Great. Sona support, mid, hopefully not jungle. Great. And of you, who has played as the DJ Sona skin? Oh, wow, a good amount of you. Great. So you'll definitely understand that DJ Sona was not just a visual thematic change to a champion, right? It was also a change in the musical experience in game. Now, the idea was to take the original kind of orchestral composition that you just heard that was written by Alex and to collaborate with a few EDM producers and create this a variety, actually, 3 very distinct remixes. You know, we had kinetic, ethereal, and what was the other one? Does anyone know? Concussive, right? Okay, just checking. But a lot of cool features as well with DJ Sona was you could change between tracks, right, while in gameplay, and that fed into that fantasy of like being a DJ, right? You could command what the vibe was going to be like. You were in charge of playing the music, and 2, while the song was playing, right, from mid-game or early game, mid-game to late game, the song was always evolving. So it was never that same single loop going on and on and on. Trust me, we really thought about that when we were developing it. And so each time as like you do something, for example, alt for the first time, like the song itself would start to evolve and change from there. Now, for the whole piece itself, as far as like for each song, there was a bit of randomization built into how these songs evolved. So each time that you played as DJ Sona, it wasn't the same exact musical journey each time. So now we have Jason Wiley over here, and Jason Wiley and I, we worked on the project along with the rest of the team. And I'd like to, in fact, Jason, kind of ask you, would you mind, what was it like to work and collaborate with like a lot of the artists that we worked with on this project? And 2, what were some of the challenges that came up?
Well, it's always awesome to collaborate with artists who inspire you. You know, these guys, sometimes they've inspired a lot of people to just get into music in general, so that's always awesome. I feel it's, for me personally, it's much more fun to be working with a group. I feel that it pushes you more and you grow as an artist, so that's always super rewarding. And also, I feel like we push each other, and the end music, the end goal ends up being something cooler than what it would have been if it was just, you know, like a Lone Ranger project or something like that. So, yeah.
And what about some challenges? Were any challenges that came up?
Well, collaboration's always going to be a little more complicated. I guess challenges would be probably the communication aspect of it, making sure that everybody is on the same page and shares the same vision. You know, you could be talking to some artist that doesn't play the game very much, and you're just in general. I mean, I'm speaking for all of DJ Sona. There were six big groups, so and then getting people to have different styles, getting those artists to mesh together and stuff. But like I said, sometimes the more challenging it is, the more rewarding the outcome can be. So.
Yeah, great. I think Jason touches on a real good point when it comes to like communication, right? Especially whether you're collaborating with, you know, artists that you've never worked with before, just collaborating with your everyday teammates, right, on projects. Like communication can be the breaker of many things, right? And especially if you're not speaking the same language, or you're just working for the first time, like to get the best product, like you definitely need to understand like what the true vision was. And I think that was a challenge, kind of to add on to what you're saying, is like working with 6 different artists on a big project like that is like, how can we all like speak the same language and communicate well, right?
Exactly.
So, and in fact, we've got Scott here from the Crystal Method.
Hello?
Now Scott was from the Crystal Method. They were one of the artists that we collaborated with for the Kinetic track, right? We had Scott and Crystal Method and Dada Life, excuse me. And Scott, actually, we worked with you guys. We had worked with you guys before on Lucian, but I'd love to ask, coming from like your side, like, how did you approach, you know, taking an orchestral piece, right, that Alex had written, and turn it into and remix it into something that became the Kinetic song that we know as today?
Well, as you heard when they played it up here, there's a lot of melody in there, a lot of, there's a story there. You can hear it without even seeing any visuals. So we just took a lot of the parts, like for instance, we have the original harp. Didn't sound like that exactly in the mix, but I'm afraid of touching any of these now. The original melody, triumphant, spirited. It's now my ringtone when I get up in the morning. And then there's so it's just about finding the right pieces and the spirit of it, and you know, bringing the tempo up a little bit and putting a beat behind it.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that.
Absolutely.
And I guess at this point right now, I'd like to go ahead and invite Curtis back on, because Jason and I actually have to prepare for the upcoming performance. But thanks, guys.
So no matter what the project is inspired by, whether it's visuals or story or an alternate fantasy, we hope to really achieve the goal, and the goal is to deepen the player's connection to the fantasy. So we're ending our time here, and we hope that you've enjoyed the look into the process of how music for League of Legends is created. There is one last performance, and it's one that we've spent the last few minutes talking about, but here's a special remix cut to an interesting video of all of the different animated clips that we've released in the past couple of years. So take it away, guys.